The United Nations says the Australian bushfires are an example of the doom and gloom the world may be facing without vigorous action on global warming, and has criticised the new Australian government's policy to tackle climate change. Dr. Roger Jones is a scientist at Victoria University who's studied the links between bushfires and climate change and has contributed to Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports. Roger Jones, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Now, these latest fires, do they mark a unique event that is caused by the luck of the draw as far as the seasons go, or is there something else going on as far as the data show?
We're looking at a situation where fires in southeastern Australia, when we look at the conditions that cause fires to become more frequent and more severe, that it's hotter, it's largely been drier, and the Forest Fire Danger Index, which is what they're measured by, has been going up significantly over the past couple of decades, that we're actually looking at a situation that is more dangerous, we think, than we've seen in historical times.
So the intensity of the fires, the frequency, and the fact that they're occurring over a greater period of the year suggests, according to the data that you've investigated, that this is caused by warming of the planet.
Yes, and we could say that there's a greater propensity for fires. So while it's difficult to actually point the finger at these specific fires and say would they have happened or wouldn't they have happened, there's no doubt that their severity and intensity is being affected to a degree by the warming of the planet.
But it is also the case that for Australia alone, that even if this country did have a rigorous national carbon abatement scheme, that on its own would not stop the frequency of these fires, because it's the entire globe that's warming.
Yes, that's correct. So we actually require a large number of countries around the world, the major emitters, to take action in the fullness of time and reduce these sorts of risks, bearing in mind that the sorts of changes we're seeing now were due to emissions 20, 30, 40 years ago. If we make large changes now, we won't see any decent impacts until at least 2040. But if we look at what could happen in the future compared to what happens today, that's something well worth doing.
And Australia's not the only country suffering from the changes to climate, not necessarily fire, but other factors as well. Things are going to get worse both nationally and internationally before they get better, if what you suggest is true.
Well, when we look at the Fire Danger Index for Victoria, it's at least 1/3 higher than it was before 1996, and those are levels that we hadn't expected or that have been projected for 2030 to 2050. So things are actually much more severe than I think most people are assuming at the moment.
Given then that a cure for the globe as a whole is some way off, what can or should the authorities be doing in terms of preventive measures, which is all that's left for the time being?
Well, the key two words are adaptation and resilience. We need to plan ahead. We need to think about how we live in the bush, where the safer places are, where the more dangerous places are, how we design our buildings, how we behave, all of those sorts of things. And we actually need to become more resilient, which means that when events occur, that we can bounce back from them faster. We know that when some of these severe events like fires and floods can happen, that people personally, in terms of their well-being or small businesses, can take a couple of years to recover.
One other factor is the question of fuel management, as it's called, I think, which is that if you have a longer fire season, then there are fewer months in which you can actually control what's there to burn.
That's true, and so one of the big difficulties has been actually getting suitable days when fuel reduction burdens can be controlled. And there are some ecological questions that we need to bring in as well. In some areas that have burnt during these hot fires, fuel reduction burning is not suitable. They're wet forests, and when they dry out, they just become very, very dangerous.
One final question, looking ahead on the specific weather and climatic data at the moment, what do you think that foreshadows for the rest of the warmer months in Australia, the rest of spring and through into the summer?
Well, I'm very concerned. Of course, we're thinking about Sydney over the next few days and hoping it doesn't turn out as badly as might be expected. But further south, we've had some very good rainfall. We've got a lot of fuel loads in the area, and if things dried out, we could face some serious risks.
Roger Jones, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.